Welcome back to another episode of On the Couch. Today I have Sue Sandy with me. She's on the board of the Vocational Mental Health Professionals Association of Australia. And this is take two because I was just saying her name wrong before. So welcome, Sue. How are you today?
Good, thank you. Great to meet you again, Brooklyn.
Yeah, you too. And thanks for agreeing to come and join us, on the kind of virtual couch. What I'd really love to do is, give you an opportunity to share your story with, all of our beautiful members and anybody who might not yet be a member, so that we can really see, what it's like to get the vocational qualification, where it can go, where it can take you. And so if it's okay, can I just dive in and ask with a first question?
Please do.
Can I ask, was there a point when you just kind of knew that you wanted to become a counsellor?
It's an interesting question. Yes, there is. I had already had my first child by this stage and was looking for something to do work-wise that would fit in with the family unit, and started to look at counselling. And I remember going to see a psychologist who specialised in, career choices. And I remember sitting in her office for about an hour, and she had a whole heap of cards in different areas and tried to define exactly what it is that I would be good at. And turned out that, working in the helping industry was what would work for me. And in the end, I said to her, I actually want to do what you do. And she looked at me and she said, "You'll never be able to do what I do." And I thought, oh, that's interesting. So I then started to research and found the Australian Institute of Professional Counsellors, which is all online, apart from the sessions that we had to go to that were face-to-face. And that fitted in perfectly because by this stage I'd had my second child and decided that that would be an ideal situation while I was on maternity leave. And then even when I went back to work, I'd still be able to continue my studies. So did all of that, qualified finally in 2005 and received my certificate then, diploma rather, then, and went on and started my own counselling practice in January 2006, just before the Better Access Initiative. And when that came in, the psychologists were being referred for psychology assistants, which was really interesting because prior to that, for the 6 or 8 months prior to that, I was getting referrals from the doctors, and I was actually operating from one of the medical centres nearby that had consulting rooms available for rent. So right up until then, I was getting referrals from the doctors. Then I realised that I needed to start advertising, and so I started doing that using Google Ads and SEO, and then started getting my own clients and referred to me. And to be able to create a really successful practice, A, it takes a long time, and B, you need to start thinking about expanding and how that expansion is going to look. So over time, I built my practice, renting out my rooms when I wasn't using it to a clinical psychologist, and then to EAP providers who were looking for space in my local area. So that was the beginning of my practice. And since then, I've taken on interns for placement. They've then shifted into being subcontractors with me. And that was how I really grew my business financially, because it was passive income. My subcontractors do get paid incredibly well. They get way more above the standard rate, but that's because I want to retain them, and it is in my best interest to keep them on board. So I now have 5 counsellors working with me, and there's a hypnotherapist who works with us as well under their own banner. So we manage their diary, but they run their own business. And then we also have EAP providers. In fact, it's the same EAP providers who continue to rent my rooms. They're now there on a full-time basis. We shifted from Mill Park to Bundoora, and I purchased a suite there in a office block. and that suite was converted to 3 rooms that are counselling rooms plus a reception area. So that's all under a self-managed super fund. So it's taken a long time. I've been in practice for over 20 years. As well as that, part-time, I work 3 days a week at a primary school as a mental health wellbeing leader, which is a new initiative through the Department of Education in conjunction with Melbourne University. So really busy, exciting times, and along the way, of course, I've got the VMHPAA that we're working alongside of, and then on top of that, Shane and I, who's also on the board of the VMHPAA, we had met back in 2010 through an organisation who at the time was doing virtual hypnosis. Really, they were way advanced, so advanced. It's a real shame that their businesses folded. But we met through that particular organisation, and then we formed a partnership and developed Neuro Balance. Neuro Balance has software that is designed to identify when someone is at risk of self-harm, and uses evidence-based psychometric measures built into the software program, along with informed consent and full intake and case management. So it's a really exciting project that we've been working on for a long time, and hoping to be able to shift that into the mental health sphere in the coming time, in the coming years. Yeah. So very exciting, lots of stuff going on. Very
lots
busy.
of stuff going on, and wow, I mean, it's so inspiring as well to hear that, even so, like going from 2005 getting qualified, then 2006, boom, we're into private practice. I mean, what's your take on that now? Like, for new people who are graduating from their diplomas, do you think it's a good move to go into private practice straight away? Are times different now? National standards? I mean, what do you think? What's your take?
Well, as you know, the Vocational Mental Health Practitioners Association of Australia has worked really hard to ensure that diploma qualified counsellors continue to be able to operate in this space. I think it's important for people who are really genuinely interested in working in the field to be able to try and find either work with another counsellor as a subcontractor, or alternatively to start their own practice, bearing in mind that you are going to be in the red for a little while. Okay, you're looking at least 2 years of being in the red. You do need to market, you do need to advertise, you do need to have space to be able to rent. Getting referrals from GPs is going to be very limited until you get your name out there. I now do actually get referrals from doctors because we specialise in relationship counselling. They are aware that mental health care plans we don't accept because we are counsellors at the end of the day, and they are fully, they notify their clients accordingly, or their patients rather accordingly, and those patients still come because they want to save their relationship. They realise that the cost of getting divorced and separated and divorced rather, is far more expensive than attending counselling for a few months to be able to get back on track. Our practice is very much relationships focused. We do general counselling as well for individuals, but we're also solutions focused in our method. We do use CBT with individuals when that's needed, as well as, other theories, REBT, for instance. So we're eclectic, I think, in our approach, but overall our practice primarily is about relationships and marriage counselling.
Hearing about how you built your business up and, the progression from it was me, and then I had to learn how to do all of these things once Better Access came in, and so it was like another learning curve, and then another learning curve, and then and you're doing it alone, right? Solo private practice, going back to work as a mum, and then also ahead being able to get staff members, subbies in, renting out rooms. It's like the business starts off one way, but it continues to evolve, right? When you're in private practice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, so
Sorry. Look, it doesn't end evolving. Right at the moment, we're changing our marketing focus as well. We've stopped with the SEO. We're doing different social media posts and stuff, which I'm not a really big fan of social media for a start, and I don't use it very often. So I do have someone else who does that for me, and their about a capacity to be able to promote is phenomenal. What I do though is I go looking for blogs and articles that can then be published using social media, and that just continues to promote our particular counselling practice. We've only just started doing that, so we're looking at the overall response from that. Interestingly, what we have found is that promoting our business through social media and also Google Ads, please remember that you do need to continue to have Google Ads and Google My Business posts. They're really important for anyone who's wanting to start in the industry. The two most important things, Google My Business posts and Google Ads, to at least get you underway. Any other type of advertising and marketing, in all honesty, I've tried it all. Please don't waste your time. If you can get someone to do your own social media, or if you're as good like Shane is, Shane's phenomenal at doing social media. If you're great at it as well, then continue to do that as well, because it will give you a profile. Bearing in mind, though, that most people, when they're looking for a counsellor, they will turn to Google, and Google is, being ranked in your area is really important. And Google My Business posts will get you up there. Google Ads will definitely get you up there. You'll be there on the first page, and you do need to spend money to be able to make money. It's one, any business will tell you that. Any new business will tell you that you have to spend money before you can start earning an income.
Yes, it's so true. And I think sometimes, it gets very exciting, doesn't it, for some of us to go make the logo and the colour palette and the font pairings for the website and things like that. And they're all very important in the beginning. But I think as you go along, you start to realise they're less important, and what's more important is making sure it's easy for somebody to get started, not necessarily pretty anymore. It's more like, oh, how quickly can somebody get started? Is it easier for them? Can they find me? All of those kinds of things. But I think it's very important too to acknowledge something that you said there about the Google profile, because I think it's often overlooked. And sometimes people think, oh, or it's too hard, or it's a bit dry, not going to do it. But it really does have an impact on ranking and reach, right? It's very important. Yeah. And I think too, what I was hearing when you were speaking reminded me of something that I hear a lot too in my communities, which is, I think when we first start a private practice, that sometimes we're thinking, I'm going to start the business and then have the website and the clients are going to come. And we think that we're going to be like on the couch doing the work. But often it's a bit of it takes time to build the diary. We might have our website up, but the internet still doesn't know us because we're so new and there's billions of websites. It takes time, and I think sometimes we forget we are going to have to market. And in the beginning, while you're getting clients, you will be doing all of these other non-client facing things. The sales are sort of tipped over there, aren't they? And then you start to get the clients and they kind of tip back again. And then it's just a little bit of balancing, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really important to understand too that you really need to have some good software that you're using as well. I'm using at the moment Acuity Scheduling. However, that's changing over to Squarespace because they've been bought out by Square. And I have to say to you, it's fantastic for managing our client diary and our rooms, and being able to make sure that we're not overlapping, and automatic emails being sent out to patients, including reminders by text about upcoming appointments. Having a website that is really detailed is really important. I built mine on Wix. I love Wix. It's so easy to use. And you're having lots of pages. Don't just stop at one page and think that that's enough. It's not. People are looking for information. And blogs are really important if you can upload them to Wix as well on your website, because people will read those articles. Getting Google My Business feedback from clients or previous clients is really important as well. If you can ask people to start giving you feedback on your services. Yes, you will get those negative ones. Having a standard response for those negative ones, which is what I have had to do, is important as well. You know, the only negative posts that we've ever received have actually been patients that haven't seen us for 2 or 3 years. Their relationship has fallen over in the meantime, usually because they've actually stopped counselling halfway through the process. They haven't proceeded. That's not our decision, that's theirs, but they look for someone to blame. You know, invariably we're the target of blame, but being able to respond to that in a really productive way is important, and to be really professional all the time, always.
Yes, yes. It's so important, especially with AI now. You know, AI Google looks at your website and your SEO and things like that. And now with Meta pushing content from Facebook and Instagram onto Google, now it's checking that too. But the AI checks everything, every comment you've ever made anywhere online. So yeah, if you made perhaps not nice comments about something or a situation, you know, maybe go back and remove them, because yeah, that comes up and that can affect whether or not the AI recommends your business or your practice to potential client, or supervisee if you're supervising, and students if you're offering group programs and things like that as well. Very important. So yeah, absolutely, always maintaining that professional thing. And
yeah, that's really important. I think the other thing to think about too is making sure that you're verified online. So LinkedIn, for instance. Again, I'm not a big user of social media, and LinkedIn, unfortunately for me, forms part of that. But I have verified myself on all of my social media sites, including LinkedIn. Really important to be able to do that, because it does, you know, as you were saying before, AI is now looking for all of those verifications to make sure that you're genuine. And as long as you've been really professional in all of your conduct on social media, you won't have any concerns as far as marketing goes. Spending the money is the hardest thing, and I know that a lot of counsellors are really reluctant to do that. You know, they've paid for their registration, they've paid for their national police check, they're paying for their professional development. I get it. You do need to bite a little bit deeper. You do need to spend money on marketing. Have a think about getting together with a couple of other counsellors that you might have studied with and starting a counselling practice between you and sharing those costs, but you know, as a shared ABN, and that will help a little bit with reducing costs. It also means that you can work out rental, which can be cheaper to rent something for a whole week as opposed to just a day or a half day. And that will actually give you more flexibility, and then you just work it out amongst yourselves as to who's going to work on what days, and book those clients in accordingly on the days that you have allocated to yourself. That's a really smart way of doing things too.
Yes. And what would you say to somebody who was aware that they need to be marketing, but they have maybe imposter syndrome? You know, they're a little bit nervous about, I've only got a diploma, like I don't have everything else, and you know, or I'm just new, maybe I don't have enough experience behind me yet. You know, I don't feel comfortable putting myself out there. What would you say to people who are in that situation?
Look, I totally get that. You know, I grew up in an Italian-based family who had migrated. Mum and dad had migrated out from Italy. They got married here, and I only had one sister. No one else in the family unit from either side of our, you know, my grandparents came out to Australia. So we were a very small family unit. So family friends became my family, if that makes sense. And having the support of those people around you is really important. They do encourage you to continue on. I think I learned to be really resilient because there was such a small family unit. which kind of made it a bit challenging. You know, there were no cousins that I could go to say, hey, you know, what do you think about this? I had to rely on my own feedback and that of my partner and my children when they were older. And it was really important to be able to just go, you know what, I'm just going to bite the bullet and do it anyway. You know, what's the worst case scenario? What's the worst case scenario? And the worst case scenario is maybe this isn't for me. And that's okay. Or maybe I do need to go and get further qualifications. Or maybe I'm in the wrong location. Or maybe, and this is the most likely scenario, I'm just simply not spending enough money on marketing and advertising my practice. It is a big expense to start with. Get an overdraft, which is what I did with your bank, and start your business. It's worth doing. You will be in the red for a while, but you will eventually build up enough to be able to go into the black. It takes time. Don't expect, there's no magic wand.
Yeah, so true. So true. I think sometimes we can make the website and then think, oh, I published my website 4 weeks ago. Where are my clients? You said if I had a website, I would have clients. It takes time. And, business itself happens in 90-day cycles, and track the numbers. It's so important. The insights are there, whether it's Google Analytics or whether it's your meta insights on Facebook or LinkedIn and things like that. That data is there to show you what's working, what's not, so you can refine and adapt. I think too, do you think that fees come into marketing the practice as well?
Absolutely. Look, I think the thing that people need to be really mindful of is don't sell yourself short. Really don't sell yourself short. Our fees, we actually bill. I'm just going to be upfront. I'm going to tell what we bill. We bill $210 per hour for couples. So if you're marketing below that, way below that, you're undermining yourself and you're undermining the rest of the industry. I'm in Melbourne, by the way. That's our Melbourne rate. So just to clarify, we're not in the country. If I was in the country areas, I would be reducing that fee to fit the marketplace. At the moment, having said that, we are offering a discount to all of our clients who are booking in the months of April and May, and that's simply because of the current economic climate. We're aware of the fact that people are struggling to find that extra money, so we have actually reduced our fees for the moment by $40 per hour, and hopefully, all going well, this economic climate will change again and we'll be able to put our fees back up to our normal rate. We do offer discounts for people who are on concessions, pensioners. There are a range of different clients that come into our practice. We also see students, particularly teenagers, who come into our practice, and of course we have a concession rate for them because they shouldn't be paying the full adult rate.
Yeah, I agree. I think also sometimes the undercharging or the low amount, it's more about our mindset. And, we're making assumptions perhaps too about our clients and, what other people do with their money or don't do with their money is none of our concern. It's up to them. If they want to get the service, they can get the service. But it doesn't help anybody if you lower the rate and burn yourself out because you've got to see a higher volume of clients to cover your expenses and still pay yourself and things like that. And that's where supervision, right, can be so helpful.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the other thing to keep in mind too is to make sure that you've got a really good bookkeeping system. I use Xero. I find Xero. I used to use Mile back in the day. I find Xero a lot easier to use, and I used to pay a bookkeeper to do my books because Mile, double entry, all the rest of it was really challenging. So Xero has made it a lot simpler, and I do that myself now. I don't need to pay a bookkeeper to come and manage my books. I do my own BAS, and I do send that to my accountant who runs through everything and, processes my taxes accordingly. So really mindful to make sure that you have systems that talk to each other. So for instance, the acuity scheduling, as I said, it's becoming Squarespace. So Squarespace and Xero talk to each other. So Squarespace automatically raises invoices in Xero for me for my clients. I don't need to do that manually. And then I can reconcile that once it's paid at the back end. It's really easy to use. So I highly recommend, you know, paying that money for software. And honestly, have a think about using an online intake informed consent case management system. I know a lot of people are moving to systems like Halaxy, but the reality is Halaxy doesn't have built-in psychometric measures like the Neuro platform does, that Shane and I developed a long time ago. And it's really easy to use. It's $166 a year. It's cheaper than Netflix. So really worth thinking about using something that can give you as a, you know, as a practice manager or a counsellor in your own practice, an opportunity to build your business and get verification of where your client is really sitting at. That's one of the benefits of this particular tool. Those psychometric measures give you a lot of information about your patient before they even walk in the door. And that's, you know, one of those things that is really important to have, to know exactly where your patient is at, and to make adjustments when you need to with where you're thinking counselling will go, to actually adjust according to the client's needs. You know, the amount of clients that I've had coming in to see me, and they sit down and I go, how's everything going? They're like, oh, everything's fantastic. You know, we've been doing this and this and this. And I go, that's really interesting, because the psychometric measures tell me a little bit differently. Where are you really at? What's really going on for you? And that's where they'll go, oh, actually, we've had a disagreement, you know, it led to a massive fight, we didn't talk for a few days. And it's like, you know, one thing to tell me as a counsellor, but at the end of the day, I need the truth to be able to work with you. And a lot of clients don't like to admit to the fact that even though they've been doing counselling for a little while, they don't like to necessarily admit to the fact that they're not doing as well as they think they should be when they're talking to you.
It's so important to be able to have that. And I think the value as well for a practitioner is that there's something objective there.
Absolutely.
You know, they've got the baseline now of where somebody was right at the beginning, and then can run it again at the end. And that's, I think, very helpful for both the practitioner and the client to be able to see the progress that's been made. Because sometimes we're always just thinking about the next thing, right? And so sometimes it's nice to be able to sit back and go, well, hang on, this is where you were, this is where you are now. You know, I think that's so helpful and so valuable. Thanks for sharing that.
No, that's okay. Look, I think one of the things about the Neuro platform, just to talk about that a little bit longer, is the fact that it is developed so that when your case notes are uploaded, they are they're locked down, as in you can't go back and amend them, which makes them far more important in a court of law, because you haven't made changes to your notes before presenting them if they're called up. You know, we get subpoenas frequently because we're dealing with, you know, couples who sometimes do break down. Sometimes they're coming simply because they have broken down and their intention is to actually separate, and that's okay. You go with wherever they're at. So those clients will often subpoena your notes because they need that for the court. Often there's custody issues around the children, and those notes, when you're presenting them to the family court, we don't make changes to any of our notes because the system doesn't allow us to go back and make those changes. They've been scanned, they've been uploaded, and they're fixed. And that gives them far more validity in a court of law because they're contemporaneous notes for a start. Now, interestingly, some of my counsellors do use AI to transcribe and make notes. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's one of the benefits of using our particular tool, because in the informed consent, it actually gives you permission. The clients give you permission to audio or video record a session at any time. We do that automatically whenever a client presents with, particularly with an intervention order. So we automatically audio record all of those sessions anyway. But it's given permission for AI to be used as well in our practice. And the clients, once they sign that informed consent, they've already given permission. In fact, there's a very specific, when you're going through the informed consent on this particular software program for the first time, they have to actually agree that they will allow the audio or video recording of a session. So that's been in place for over 10 years now. So it's one of the benefits of using our particular tool. You don't need to think about it twice. You don't need to go back and get permission. We always remind our clients, hey, just so you know, we're recording this, just to ensure that they're still okay with it. And, you know, it does mean that they understand the efficacy behind the reasons for doing that as well. And the good thing is with the audio recording, that's also made available if ever needed. That's included as part of a subpoena. So, you know, you can hear inflection, tone of voice, and that's really important when people are talking about things, because, you know, they might jokingly turn around and say, oh, you know, I'm going to hit you. And they're kind of joking about it, but the intention is there because you can hear it in the tone. And they can't wipe it and turn around and say, oh, you know, I didn't mean it was only a joke. You know, they can't wipe it because you can hear it in the tone. And if that's recorded, then that's really important evidence for the court system.
Fantastic. So where can people go to find out more about the software?
So they just need to type in Neuro Balance, neurobalance.com.au, and they'll find out all about us, and they'll be able to click on links. We do provide training as well during the year. So we offer training around suicide risk. We offer, it's called Choosing Life. We also offer training on the actual software itself. That's included with part of the package. So we help people set up their practice. We take them through, you know, on a few practice attempts so that they understand exactly how the program works. We're always available to assist whenever anyone has any questions.
Perfect. And that's also a tax deduction for their practice, right?
Oh, absolutely. Anytime you spend any money at all on your practice, including driving from your home office to your rental space and driving back home again, that's all included. So please remember to include your mileage.
Yes. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time.
That's
I
okay.
really appreciate it. It was so helpful. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Brooklyn. Have a great day.
You too.